A wasteland wind whined through the skeletal remains of a skyscraper. Once an emblem of human ambition, now it was a monument to a shattered world. A rusted carcass picked clean by scavengers. Alex leaned against its girders, eyes shielded against the harsh sun. Below, his crew shuffled through the rubble, their forms as drab and as scarred as the cityscape they inhabited. This was the world they were born into. The aftermath of the annihilation. A swift, devastating war against an alien armada whose name they had never even learned. "Captain!" Jake, his burly second-in-command, trudged up, a broken chunk of machinery clutched in his hand. "Looks like we got ourselves a doozy here." Alex squinted at the fragment, years of scrounging for scraps of old tech honing his eye. Whatever this once was, its guts were a tangled mess now. "It's fried, Jake. Might as well be space junk." "Oh, hold on there." Jake scratched at his beard, a stubborn gleam in his eyes. "See these markings? It's not our kind of scribbles, and don't look like alien either." An unfamiliar sigil, stylized and angular, was stamped on the ruined casing. Alex felt a flicker he hadn't felt in years, the tug of a buried hope, the lure of forgotten knowledge. Alex rubbed his stubble, a decision weighing upon him. Time spent sifting through scrap was time they weren't hauling in their meager paycheck, but the potential of discovery that held a desperate kind of allure. "All right, load it up," he relented. "Let's see what this ghost from the past might whisper to us." The Junkyard Dog, their ramshackle salvage vessel, was less a ship and more a testament to human ingenuity, or desperation, depending on who you asked. Welding patches marred her hull, salvaged engines rumbled with a dubious symphony, and the entire bridge was held together by sheer force of will and more duct tape than Alex cared to admit. But she was their lifeline in this ravaged world. Their makeshift workshop, an abandoned hangar half buried in desert sands, took an air of cautious excitement. Maya, the tech whiz with oil stains permanently etched into her skin, was practically vibrating beside the ancient relic they'd hauled in. "I've never seen anything like this," she murmured, her nimble fingers probing the tangle of wires and circuits. "Pre-annihilation, definitely. It's military grade, but..." Her voice trailed off, replaced by the frown creasing her brow. Alex leaned closer, his own curiosity now fully piqued. "What is it?" "It's half-cooked, like a blueprint without instructions." Maya gestured towards a holographic panel, flickering with incomplete schematics. "A weapons system, I think, but crucial parts are missing, like it was never finished." Disappointment was a familiar ache, but Alex tamped it down. "Could we complete it? Make it work?" Maya chewed her lip. "We'd have to figure out the missing pieces, reverse engineer it. It's possible, but it'll take time, resources we barely have." Their existence was a delicate balancing act, bartering salvaged scraps for food and the bare necessities. Taking risks was rarely an option. They danced a desperate waltz with survival. Yet Alex found himself staring at that unfinished blueprint, at the tantalizing suggestion of a weapon born from the desperation of a bygone era. "If we could make it work," he mused, a plan starting to take shape in his mind. "It wouldn't just be scrap anymore, would it? It could be a game changer," Jake finished, having caught on. "Them aliens, they crushed us because we couldn't keep up with their tech." A dangerous light kindled in his eyes. "But if we even the odds..." The air in the hangar crackled with newfound purpose. This wasn't just about salvaging another piece of junk. It was just about unearthing an ember from humanity's dying fire. It was a long shot, the odds heavily stacked against them, but desperation was a hell of a motivator. "All right, let's get to work," Alex declared. "We make this piece of history spit fire again." The restoration project consumed them. Maya became a ghost, haunting forgotten research outposts and scrounging for compatible parts. Jake's crew transformed into gruff engineers, deciphering faded manuals and rewiring the Junkyard Dog's aging systems. Even Alex, not one for tinkering, found himself drawn to the intricate puzzle of the unfinished tech. They bartered, cajoled, and occasionally resorted to outright scavenging, pushing their already meager resources to the limit. Word spread across the scavenger network, a desperate whisper of a weapon that could shift the balance of power. Some scoffed, others stared at them with hungry gleams in their eyes, sensing a change in the bleak winds of fate. Each successful test, each milestone reached, was like flicking on a forgotten light in the darkness that had shrouded them for so long. But their labor was not without notice. The aliens had never quite left Earth, their patrols enforcing the new brutal order. Shadows whispered of increased activity near their territory, probing eyes searching for the source of this renewed defiance. "We're walking a tightrope, Captain," Jake warned, his usual boisterous confidence dimmed. "Those bastards catch wind of what we're doing, we'll be swatted down like gnats." Alex knew he was right. This was more than just resurrecting a piece of tech. This was brewing a rebellion with spare parts and sheer stubbornness. It was a dance with a devil they couldn't outrun, only outsmart. "Then we'll make sure there's nothing for him to find," Alex said, his voice low. "Work in shifts, keep your comms tight, and if anyone sees as much as a shimmer of one of their ships, we scatter." It was a war fought not on some grand battlefield, but in the gritty shadows of their ravaged world, fueled by the stubborn flame of resistance. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months, the Junkyard Dog becoming a crucible of ingenuity and fear, the weight of their gamble pressing upon them all. Finally, the day came when Maya, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion and a triumphant grin splitting her grease-stained face, uttered the words they'd been working towards. "It's alive." The weapon system flickered into existence, not with a sleek hum of alien tech, but with a defiant roar of cobbled-together parts. It was a Frankenstein monster of jury-rigged components and salvage power cores, as ugly as it was potentially lethal. Now the question is, can it bite? Alex wondered aloud, a sense of reckless anticipation coursing through him. Their testing ground was a desolate stretch of desert, once teeming with life, now a graveyard of rusted hulks and wind-scoured dunes. Targeting systems screeched in protest as they forced the ancient tech to sync with the Junkyard Dog's archaic interface. The first trial runs were less than impressive. "It's spitting sparks and complaining like a cranky mule." Maya winced as another salvage pylon buckled and died with a shriek. "Keep at it." Alex's voice was steely. "We didn't come this far to give up now." But as the failures mounted, as essential components gave out with spectacular explosions, doubt crept in. This wasn't some simple restoration. They were teaching an old dog entirely new tricks. Tricks it wasn't necessarily built for. And all the while, the invisible clock ticked down, the threat of alien eyes looming over them. Then, amidst a cloud of acrid smoke and flying sparks, came a breakthrough. A discarded mining laser, scavenged from a forgotten lunar colony, synced unexpectedly with the system. Crudely aimed, it sliced through an abandoned tank husk like a hot knife through butter. A primal roar of triumph went up through the crew. It was far from perfect. The system was temperamental, prone to overloads, and aimed with all the finesse of a drunken brawler. But it was theirs. A testament to human grit spat in the face of overwhelming odds. It was time to move on to the next stage of their audacious plan. Alex laid out the map, a tattered relic with marked zones and routes. "This is their patrol pattern." He tapped into a fading red line. "Predictable, but the net is tight." "They don't expect us to come at them," Maya countered, a gleam in her eyes. "Especially not with the piece of junk like the dog." "Which is our advantage," Alex continued, tracing a finger along an unmarked area. "Here, an asteroid belt dense enough to cover, littered with enough debris to hide a—" He paused, a grin spreading across his face. "A trap." Their eyes met across the table. It was madness, pure and simple, the kind of suicidal plan born from desperation and fueled by a sliver of insane hope. But sometimes it was in the embrace of madness that the seeds of victory were sown. The transformation of the Junkyard Dog began. Weapon systems were cunningly concealed, disguised as scrap, or integrated into the ship's already haphazard design. Alex, drawing on years of scavenging raids and evading alien patrols, charted a course through the asteroid belt, a convoluted path only someone intimately familiar with the debris field could navigate. The final touch was a relic from an old museum heist, a jamming system outdated by a decade, but still potent enough to scramble short-range comms. It was a gamble, a flimsy shield against the alien's superior detection, but they were counting on surprise, on their enemy overlooking the punch from a rusty fist. "It's not about winning a fight," Alex addressed his crew, their faces alight with a mixture of fear and grim determination. "It's about making enough noise that they can't ignore us. It's about lighting a damn fire under this dying world." The plan was simple in its audacity. Lure an alien patrol ship into the asteroid belt, cripple it with their jury-rigged weapons, and disappear back into their debris-laden chaos. It was a single, calculated strike, a desperate bid to remind both the aliens and the remnants of humanity that they weren't dead yet, just wounded. The asteroid belt shimmered in the cold light of distant stars, an unforgiving expanse of rock and ice. The Junkyard Dog drifted like a forgotten specter amongst the giants, its engines throttled down to a barely-there hum. Inside, the silence was deafening, the tension stretched taut. "They're close," Maya whispered, her eyes glued to the scanner display. Fuzzy blips danced on the screen, the methodical pulse of the alien patrol. Alex's fingers tightened on the worn control yoke. It's showtime, folks. The Junkyard Dog nudged to life, a desperate crawl that disguised the thrumming power waiting to be unleashed. They were a piece of flotsam, an echo on the radar, just another drifting relic in a sector the aliens had long since dismissed as worthless. The trap was sprung with agonizing slowness. The lead blip on the scanner swerved, drawn by a carefully discarded chunk of alloy gleaming with an irresistible power signature. The Junkyard Dog feigned disarray, a sputtering retreat meant to paint a picture of the crippled ship caught unawares. "They've taken the bait," Jake murmured, the awe in his voice at odds with the cool professionalism he tried to maintain. The alien vessel, sleek and angular, materialized from the inky blackness with startling speed. Their gamble had paid off. The flagship was isolated, its escorts too far behind to intervene quickly. Arrogance was their unexpected ally. "Now!" Alex's command was a steel whip crack. The Junkyard Dog roared in defiance, the concealed weapon system snapping into existence. The mining laser speared the night, searing the flagship's pristine hull. A disguised missile launcher spat out salvaged warheads that detonated against its weakened flank. Surprise turned to rage on the intercepted alien comm chatter. Chaos erupted. The asteroid belt was no longer their cover. It became their battlefield. The Junkyard Dog danced a waltz of deadly deception, weaving amongst the behemoths of rock and metal with impossible grace, born of Alex's intimate knowledge with the terrain. Return fire sizzled past. Asteroids vaporized into blinding bursts of light as the flagship blindly lashed out. Its superior firepower was negated by the claustrophobic confines of the asteroid field. Its elegance became its disadvantage. "Their scanners are fried," Maya shouted over the din. "They're fighting in the dark." That was their edge. Human grit and salvaged surprises. Discarded solar arrays refitted with reflective foil created a blinding diversion. An ancient malfunctioning stasis field generator. Its only use now to create an unexpected drag. It sent the flagship spiraling away just long enough for the Junkyard Dog to land another punishing blow. They were the underdogs. The scavengers turned guerrilla fighters. Each hit, each brush with annihilation fueled their desperate fury. But their enemy was formidable, adapting. Warning sirens blared through the Junkyard Dog's aging hull as targeting beams sliced a little too close for comfort. "We've got their attention, Captain," Jake said grimly. "Doubt this dance can last too much longer." Alex knew he was right. It was time to cash in on their hard-won advantage and deliver the final punch. "Prep the hauler," he ordered, his voice echoing with a grim resolve. For weeks they'd painstakingly modified their industrial magnetic hauler, overloading it with a volatile salvaged fuel. It was their makeshift bomb, a final desperate ace up their sleeve. "Taking her in hot," Alex gritted out, piloting the Junkyard Dog in a near-suicidal collision course. Debris exploded around them as he pushed the old engines far beyond their extended limits. "You crazy son of a—" Jake began, then simply laughed, the sound filled with desperate exhilaration. The flagship, realizing the ploy, turned its considerable firepower upon the approaching ship, but it was too late. The Junkyard Dog rammed the flagship's flank, the hauler detaching seconds before impact. A blinding flash engulfed the battlefield, and then came the shockwave. It slammed into the Junkyard Dog, rattling her to her core. Bulkheads buckled, rivets shrieked in protest, and Alex felt the very frame of his ship strain against the ferocious blast. They limped from the aftermath, dazed but somehow miraculously intact. The scavenged comms crackled to life, choked with static, but through the haze a clear message echoed. Alien reinforcements scrambling, the flagship crippled beyond pursuit. It wasn't a clean victory. The Junkyard Dog was a smoking wreck, her crew battered and bruised. They hovered amidst the wreckage of the asteroid field, the fading glow of the disabled flagship serving as a somber testament to the brutal battle. "Now what?" Maya asked, exhaustion thick in her voice. Alex closed his eyes, the adrenaline leaving his system, a bone-deep weariness setting in. He pictured the stunned reactions rippling through the alien fleets, the flicker of fearful defiance reignited in the hearts of scavengers. They had bought themselves time, a sliver of hope, but the war was far from over. "Now," Alex said, opening his eyes, determination replacing the weariness, "we rebuild. We spread the word." The Junkyard Dog, her hull a testament to the desperate battle, became a symbol. She was no longer just a ship, but a beacon. The message she carried was one born of defiance. Humanity might be down, battered, but they weren't out. Scavengers turned engineers began flocking to them. Whispered plans were shared, moth-eaten blueprints unearthed. It was a slow revolution, one built not on grand speeches, but on scavenged parts and unyielding spirit. Alex, hardened by years of loss, felt a flicker of something he thought long dead stir inside him. It wasn't certainty, not by a long shot, but something close to belief. Maybe this wasn't their final stand. Maybe this was their turning point. Years passed, not in a blur, but in a series of hard-fought battles. The scars of that first strike against the flagship faded on the Junkyard Dog's hull, replaced by newer marks earned in desperate skirmishes. Alex and his crew became ghosts, haunting the territories the aliens claimed as their own, striking and disappearing back into the vast wasteland of Earth. They weren't an army, not yet, but they were a network, a growing thorn in the side of the invaders. Each refitted ship, each liberated cache of salvage tech, each whisper of rebellion that reached their ears fueled their cause. Alex became more than just a captain. He became a leader forged in the crucible of despair. His haunted eyes, once dulled by defeat, now held a sharp focus, calculating and cunning. Jake's boisterousness tempered into quiet determination, his strength the backbone of their ragtag fleet. Maya, forever with grease stains beneath her nails, was their mastermind, pushing the boundaries of the salvaged tech, their salvaged hope. Their victories were hard won, the costs heavy. Familiar faces disappeared in flashes of alien fire, swallowed by their ever-present shadow of sacrifice. The weight of each loss etched itself into Alex's soul, a constant companion to his unwavering drive. Yet, the impossible was happening. They were holding ground, even reclaiming small outposts, forgotten corners of their shattered world. Alex stood on the windswept ramparts of a reclaimed mining facility, a banner bearing the crudely forged emblem of the Junkyard Dog snapping above him. It was a victory, one of many still needed, but victory nonetheless. Below, amidst the repurposed machinery, humanity was stirring. Not the mighty civilization they once were, but something new, leaner, tempered by fire. Children were born who knew no other world than this broken existence, but in their eyes, Alex saw the flicker of defiance burn brighter than the fear. The final confrontation came not as a grand orchestrated clash, but in the gritty underbelly of their wounded world. Intercepted transmissions revealed a weakness. The alien mothership, its very presence a symbol of their unchallenged dominion, was making a supply run. Seizing their chance, they prepared a trap more intricate and deadly than any before. An abandoned refinery complex, a maze of rusted pipes and volatile chemical tanks became their snare. Alex's once calloused hands, now filled with detonator switches, stood amidst the deceptive calm. Around him, not just his crew, but others, battle-scarred scavengers, grizzled engineers, those who carried the flickering torch of resistance, waited. They were still the underdogs. The mothership dwarfed their cobbled-together fleet, its firepower capable of wiping them out in a single contemptuous blast. But they had learned to fight dirty, to turn their weakness into their strength. The knowledge that they were protecting their families, now huddled beneath the reclaimed outposts, fueled their desperate resolve. The mothership's arrival was heralded by the oppressive shadow it cast across the ruined landscape. Then, the onslaught. The Junkyard Dog, true to her name, wove through the chaos like a defiant cur, barking back against the impossible odds. The refinery complex itself became a weapon, fuel lines rigged to detonate, each explosion knocking the behemoth off balance. On the comms, panic laced through the alien commands. They had never faced such relentless, unorthodox fury. Alex savored their fears in their voices, a grim balm to the ache of past defeats. Then, a flash of realization twisted his gut. The mothership, damaged but still vastly superior, was changing course. No longer did it fight, it aimed to escape. His gamble had failed, all this sacrifice for nothing. Despair and fury twisted within him, and then he saw it, a reckless opening, a maneuver born of desperation. Alex knew it was a suicidal move, a 1 in a million shot, but as he stared at the mothership's vulnerable, exposed flank, a flicker of that long-lost daredevil grin tugged at his lips. They'd started this fight with a half-finished blueprint and a dream that bordered on madness. Ending it in a blaze of glory seemed a fitting way to go. "Captain?" Jake's worried voice crackled over the comms. "Take the fleet and get 'em clear," Alex said, his voice steady. "I'm taking the dog in for one last dance." He didn't hear the protests, didn't wait for farewells. The Junkyard Dog roared in defiant answer, her battered form streaking towards the fleeing mothership. Alex found a cruel joy in it, the final flight of a ship that was always meant to be expendable. He'd give 'em one hell of a show.